Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Talking with Heroes, talkingwithheroes.com, our nonprofit, thank you for your service.us. We're still here at the Warrior, 5th Annual Warrior Community Integration Symposium, America's Warrior Partnership.org. And on this session, one of many sessions that we'll be filming here, we're going to be hearing from, it's a Vetlanta session, Vetlanta.org. Harnessing corporate resources to build a veteran-friendly community. And this session is moderated by Lloyd Knight with UPS. And the panelists are Bethany George with the HomeDepot, Vivian Greentree with FirstData, Dino Peroni with AT&T, and Jason Wright, JPMorganChase.
Good evening, everyone. It's a beginning of a great evening. Long day for all of us, I think, because we learned so much. So the folks who were in the community group work this morning started out at 9, and then we progressed up through, and we're ending on a great note because our partner, I know I'll spell it out, or on the electronics, which probably would be worse. We're really fortunate to have Vetlanta in Atlanta. And I want to thank Lloyd for being here and the whole team. There's the Warrior Alliance is in Atlanta, Vetlanta's in Atlanta, and complementary, working together, they do incredible stuff and make veterans' lives so much better, both in the community and in the corporations. I can't thank Vetlanta for coming enough. I think it was about 2 months ago, Jason, that we were in Dallas. And we were talking about it, and he said, yeah, we're going to come, and we want Vetlanta, and it's part of the symposium. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. And so I went to Lori, and I said, hey, I got this great idea. and this is where it came to. But I want to welcome everyone to this event. This is the 3rd year for us to partner with Vetlanta to host the opening session. This year we wanted to highlight the corporate strength behind the goal of making Atlanta the best community for veterans to live and work. And for those of you who are friends on Facebook with Garrett Cathcart and read his note about Atlanta being the best community for veterans to come to, I think you'd agree. America's Warrior Partnership, as you know, we operate nationally, helping community groups like Vetlanta serve veterans and military veterans and their families with all kinds of issues, including benefits, housing, employment, healthcare, education, recreation, and services. The Warrior Alliance has their the circle that they pursue, and that represents the same vision that we have. You can't replace community agencies. We enhance them. We're a firm believer that every veteran is served locally. The VA does an incredible job of providing services from a national level down, but there is no replacement for a local level connection, face-to-face, relationship building. When you're in the military, you look to your left and your right, and those are the folks that you trust. And I think in the community, you can cultivate that relationship where you look to the left and the right and know who you can trust. The common ground for America's Warrior Partnership that we have with a Vet Connect and with each of the affiliates is service. Everything we do and everything we are is service related. The panel that's going to come up here to speak today are exemplary of service. Every single person over there I know, and Dino said, hey, Dino. I said, Dino, I know you, Dino. I met you a couple of years ago, and you do great stuff for the community. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you for supporting Vetlanta. This is a really important panel. This is where you learn about what, from these leaders in business, how do they best serve veterans. And I think if you're a veteran community program, or if you're a program that provides one of the pillars that they might use, you might think about, okay, how do I connect with them? how do I bring what I have and sell my great dog tag bakery stuff to them. And so with that, I want to introduce the panel that's coming along.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our moderator, Lloyd Knight. Joining Lloyd, Bethany George, Dino, Dr. Vivian Greentree, and Jason Wright.
Everybody for coming out tonight. We're going to do a little bit something different, something we do at Vetlanta all the time. If you love our great country, stand up and give it a round of applause. Patriotism goes a long way, and it's all about having a servant attitude. So I'm really happy that we've got this panel tonight. This is the third year in a row that we've done this. So really want to thank AWP for having us tonight. Together we're doing amazing things, and together we will make Atlanta the top destination for veterans. So we're going to do I just want to start with some really quick questions, lighthearted questions in order to break the ice with the panel. We'll start with Dino and work our way down. Dino, favorite food?
Pizza.
Mexican.
Seafood.
Seafood. Yeah, I like steak, but it's been Mexican a lot. So favorite business-related book?
Food by cheese.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Human
Teams?
Well, I have to say, since I work for HomeDepot, built from scratch.
Very good.
Great entrepreneurial spirit book, and proof that if someone tells you you can't do it, you absolutely can.
That's like any of the writings from Peter Drucker. It's really good stuff. It's very baseline leadership, very common sense, almost very almost a military type style approach.
See, they all chose books like this thick. So mine is "Don't Take the Last Donut" by Judith Bowman, and it's about this thick. And it was she offers great business etiquette advice, and learn a lot from that little book. So favorites, college, sports team.
University of Miami.
Army of one today, sorry.
Georgia football bulldogs.
Ooh, Bulldogs. How about that?
University of Wisconsin Badgers. Hey! Wisconsin fans.
Go Canes.
Miami. Yeah, wow. I'm going to throw a unique one out there, Boise State Broncos. Boise. And that's based on playing Nintendo in 1984 and them having a blue field. I got it. So hey, tonight we have some great companies here on stage. And Vetlanta, we really started off with a group of Fortune 500 companies getting together to figure out how to best serve veterans. And if you're not familiar with Vetlanta, check us out. And we're unique. We're not a nonprofit. So we're not an LLC. We're a club. We're a club of, it's really crazy. It's 4.5 years old, of 2,000 members. And you heard what we want to do. We want to make Atlanta the top destination. One of the interesting things we do is we don't take any money. We're chartered not to take any money, not to give any money. We're focused on collaboration and volunteer power. We're not trying to recreate the will. We don't want to take money away from AWP and from TAPS and from VEO and the great nonprofits. We want to bring energy and volunteerism to that. And we have altogether 5 amazing companies on the stage today that do amazing things in our communities and for veterans. And tonight we're going to learn how to harness that power. So we'll start off, and I like the first question to be for everybody. We'll start at Dino and work our way down. And let's start off with the very basic and why Vetlanta started off, hiring veterans. So tell me a little bit about your veteran strategy and how many veterans work for each of your companies.
Yeah, sure. Here at AT&T, it starts at the top. Our CEO had a mandate to hire 20,000 veterans by 2020. That was upped from 10,000 veterans by 2014. So we were doing so great in achieving that target that we upped it. So today we have about 14,000 veterans on staff, and that represents approximately 12% of the total workforce.
Yeah, awesome. Very good. And we'll get to your VBRG in a little bit. Vivian, veteran hiring?
And so FirstData, our military efforts are really housed under FirstData Salutes, which has our 3 pillars: education, experience, employment, and entrepreneurship. When I came to the company in 2014 and started FirstData Salutes, we were at about 1.5% of our total U.S. population being military affiliated or veterans. Since then, and of course a little bit of that was unidentified. So we had some self-reports after we started our program. So right now we're sitting at about 10% of our new hires year to date this year, and then overall about 9%. And so, and a lot of that too, though, is now that we capture whether it's the military affiliation, whether it's veteran, guard, or reserve, or military spouse.
Congratulations, you made a big difference. It's been fun watching you make a difference.
You bring up a good point about self-identifying. We find that that is an issue. Now, at Home Depot, we've got 36,000 self-identified veterans, and I know we have more because I meet people, find out that they're a veteran, and they're not on the list that I saw. So the good thing is that when we reach out, we can let them know, please go back and identify. Because there are things that we can do, and we're constantly. If you go to our careers page, you can see our military commitment, a new focus coming soon on spouses as well. Just because of the footprint that we have, the job is so transferable. It just makes sense. More coming on that.
Awesome, Jason.
Yeah, we're at 7,000 around there. And same thing, we have the same issue where you meet a lot of people who never self-identified as a veteran, and we are working as well to follow FirstData and Comcast Footsteps to have a more robust military spouse identification program.
Great. So at UPS, we're about 27,000 veterans. We set a goal in 2013 to hire 25,000 veterans over a 5-year period. We doubled that, just like AT&T, the 50,000. Honestly, we didn't know how many veterans we had and how many veterans we were hiring. So the goal wasn't much of a stretch for us. So and we have the same issue that is not everybody self-identifies, especially the veterans that came to UPS 30 years ago. So a lot of them after the post-Vietnam, a lot of them didn't self-identify. And the great thing is our VBRGs, our Veterans Business Resource Groups, are starting to change that. And we have them identifying all the time. So Bethany, you mentioned a little bit about having a program specific for female veterans or spouses. Does anybody else have anything specific you do for female veterans or spouses? So if not, I'll leave it to Bethany. Do you have anything more to offer on that?
Just that we are in the beginning stages of trying to get the word out about the transferability of the job and to market to spouses. So we are partners with Military Spouse Employment Partnership and do work with them, but we know that absolutely is kind of an audience and an amazing group of people that we would love to have work for us. That same commitment, that same loyalty that a military member or veteran brings, a spouse brings as well.
And we had the military spouse mobility policy as well. And one of the things, it's a different slice of your question, but our military program has really driven a lot of our diversity and inclusion training, recurrent training for managers, parental leave policy for 12 weeks, paid parental leave for either parent for adoption or birth. And it was driven though by that, I think the idea that our military program really helped start was that, don't make people choose between serving their country through Guard and Reserve status or working at FirstData, or you're going to lose. And that has kind of followed on for women, where don't make women choose between having a career or having a family, is, again, we're going to lose. And you could do that with any kind of subgroup, but that mentality really came from us, our military program, looking at people holistically and thinking, don't make them choose us or any part of themselves, or we're going to lose.
Yeah, great. I think 2019 is going to be a big year for the military spouse. So there's I'll throw a little bit of shade at Amazon. I know Amazon's got a great spouse program, and American Corporate Partners, one of the groups I volunteer with, they're coming out with a spouse program as well. So lots of great companies finally throwing attention at military spouses, which is awesome. So we'll start. I think all of us have are a big part of our veterans business resource groups. The Vetlanta really traces our traditions back to a bunch of BBRG leaders getting together and talking about best practices and lessons learned. So and Dino is in some of those original meetings, and would like to understand a little bit more about your BBRGs and what your Veterans Business Resource Group strategy is and your history. And I start with Dino because AT&T is very cool. Most of the BBRGs that are around date back to 5 or 10 years ago, and they got on the ball a long time ago. So Dino, if you could tell us a little bit about what AT&T does.
Yeah, sure, thanks. Just to kind of parlay off of what you just said, this is our 35th anniversary as an ERG, or an employee resource group, so we're pretty proud of that. We're actually going down to Dallas next week, where one of our founding fathers is going to join us and help us celebrate our 35th anniversary. But the organization has clearly evolved over that time period. One of the things that I think has made us successful is adhering to our core values of serving those who have served. But as the years went by and I looked past history and interviewed the men and women who have served in the organization, one thing is clear: it is to have a structure. It's to have an organization with leadership, professional development, training, all of the things that go into a great organization applied to our nonprofit as well. And if you don't have that, the results, you're not going to get the results, in my opinion. So I would say have a great organizational structure that fits your mission and fill the right spots with good leaders.
Anything on your BBRG?
So not the same kind of experience. I have one for 35 years. It's kind of amazing when you think about how human capital management has evolved. We have 8 employee resource groups. Our military affinity group, our MAG, is one. It's one of our most active. We've done some stuff with JPMC and hopefully doing some more stuff with HomeDepot, because we've seen that it has affected our ability to recruit, retain, and our internal mobility, and also entrepreneurship, getting out and talking to veteran-owned businesses, because you identify with veterans, you identify with military spouses, and so we really targeted their actions and their programming around the pillars of employment, education, and experience, which is that retention, professional development, upward mobility, and then entrepreneurship. We have about 10 chapters of our military affinity group, and each one kind of has their own flair based on the community that they're in and the relationships with that particular site, what other companies. But one thing we would definitely like to do and hear more from people here and on the stage is getting our military affinity group leaders more connected to each other, because that's really where the impact happens, and we can kind of connect them at their level so that they can keep working in between all of the symposiums that we go to, and maybe participate in whatever service projects that we're doing, or professional development, or reading resumes, or just networking, because the population of transitioning veterans.
Yeah, so we had an opportunity at UPS maybe 2 years ago to bring in all our BBRG leaders to a Vetlanta summit, And it was wonderful. We spent about 5 hours meeting before the summit. Just having those connections, the collaborating going forward, because it's all about learning from each other, right? Who's good in the space, who's bad in the space, who's ugly in the space, so and figuring that out with partners versus figuring it out on your own. Yeah, I think.
And benchmarking or stealing. I don't call it benchmarking, but I know. So our associate resource groups is what we call them, have been around for 11 years, and I'm the chair of our military appreciation group and have been for 3 years. And when I first started, I know I met with Lloyd, and because what we were missing, and I think this is kind of an ebb and a flow, was that structure that Dino mentioned. The board was doing everything, and you cannot make an impact that way. And so, of course, he only shared non-proprietary information with me on kind of how they did it and how they were successful. And, I'm absolutely proud to say that we have moved along. We have a community team, we have an events team, we have a veteran integration program that we're doing now for new incoming veterans to Home Depot. They could have transitioned recently and this is their first job, or maybe it's their second or third job, but just Home Depot is hard enough as it is. So let's have a partner that can kind of help them through that. And success has just been great. So thank you.
It's been a pleasure. You're welcome. Jason?
Yes, so our BRG, our Veterans BRG started around 2010. We're about 7,000 people right now. And it's almost a 50-50 split between veteran and non-veteran members, which is awesome. But going back to our number, about 6,000 veterans in the firm, it's just we have some room to grow, both on the veteran and non-veteran side. And as Vivian mentioned, we've found a lot of value in connecting our BRG leads in different cities with our partner corporations and their BRG leads, because they want to stay connected. They really don't care what company it is or what, or line of business or division they work in. They just want to know what events next, and how they can help and how they can volunteer. So we found a lot of value in that.
Great. One of the things at UPS that we've done a really good job at is the VBRGs. We're 12 chapters across the country, is educating our leadership and our workforce. And the simple stuff like, hey, don't wish somebody a happy Memorial Day, and the educating them on the military, the Guard and the Reserve, how to interview veterans. Not that just throw away a resume because you don't recognize some of the terminology. So I think we've had a big impact there. So, but I agree with each one of you. It's all based on your leadership in your local chapter, right? So they all look a little bit different. But the big thing is we're doing wonderful things, not only in Atlanta, but across the nation. The job well done. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with nonprofits, because we have a lot of nonprofits here, and I know you do some amazing things. So I'm going to start off with Bethany, because Bethany's got something that she's involved with that I'm very passionate with as well.
So excuse my notes. I get really excited and I don't want to forget something. So the nonprofit that I really enjoy working with the most, it's called Veterans Empowerment Organization, and they're local to Atlanta, and they have a housing first mindset. And if you think of anyone that's homeless, it's very difficult to work on anything else if you don't have a roof over your head. So they focus on that, but then they also provide all the other services that that person needs, whatever led them to that homelessness. Home Depot has been involved with them since 2011. Started out with Home Depot securing a facility that could house, had 68 transitional beds and 24 permanent, actually, for those with special needs. So that was kind of the initial relationship. and then just a variety of things over the years, beautification projects. Most recently in 2016, we secured another facility for senior veterans. And from a personal standpoint, I initially went there because of more of a workforce connection. So I'm in talent acquisition, and I wanted to connect with the veterans that were ready to look for work. And went a couple of times for that, a couple of job fairs, was involved, I know, through Vetlanta, for some meals, helping clean up neighborhoods and the neighborhood in the area. And I just, the impact that it personally made on me, I hope I have more time to spend there. That's the one thing. Like, you feel every time I see something come across my email, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And there's, just like everybody else, there's like 5 million other things that we have to do. I'm retiring soon from the reserves, though, so I'm excited about some time that I'm going to get back in my life. And I do plan on doing more with VEO. Homelessness is very personal to me. I had a sibling who is no longer with us, who was homeless for a period of time, and it's just something that if I can help in any way, just want to do.
Very, very personal for me too. If you Google Jim Casey Community Service Award, and watch a video, it's a video about an award I received, but it's very focused on some of the leadership of a certain person at VEO, and it's very cool. And I was honored to have VEO as part of that. So, anybody else want to cover something they're passionate with?
We've done some work with Carry the Load and Team Red, White, and Blue. Actually, one of the first events we did with FirstData was with Carry the Load. This past spring, and we had over 3,000 of our employees show up to about 9 of the walks, or the sections of the walk. And I think that was just a really very interesting thing to do because, as you mentioned, like with the BRGs, they came out, and a lot of them just on their own set up like the memorial tables and sort of explain in our cafeterias and different offices like what Memorial Day is about, what it signifies. And for a lot of people, it was just a good conversation to start to bridge that divide, because most obviously employees on the civilian side have never seen something like that. So things like that, and then or Team Red, White, and Blue, where it's very easy to show. I know in our tri-state chapter in New York, we recently had a volunteer day for a cemetery cleanup. It was something very easy that anybody can show up at, put it in the newsletter, and we had a lot of employees show up, so that was great.
One partnership that I'm particularly proud of is our relationship with American Corporate Partners, or ACP. We've had a long-standing relationship with that organization. It resonates with me because when I was coming out of the military in the late 90s, I was clueless about corporate America, and I basically weaseled my way into AT&T. So please don't. But I would have done a lot better had I had some guidance and direction and mentorship. And that's exactly what ACP provides. The pool of employees who participate in that program, and I think we have about 900 total AT&T veterans employees that mentor on a regular basis. And I hope when those veterans, if they choose to come to AT&T or in corporate America, they're just going to pay that forward, and that's so important because if they have a great experience transitioning, they're going to just look back and try to pull someone else up along with them. So ACP, and they're just a great organization.
It's a good organization. So Dino and I have known each other for quite a while, supporting those. We used to do panel discussions quite often when unemployment was still pretty high. And the first panel discussions we did with HomeDepot and GE, EPS, and AT&T, we probably had 15 people in the room. Yep. And I think the very last one we did, we had 225 people in the room. So they, doing great stuff. Vivian, anything?
So our, if it's a national partnership, it's usually with an organization that has something to do with either getting skills to work. So like Empower, we work with not just for veterans, but for a variety of populations, or because it's some kind of meaningful interaction that the military affinity groups at the different sites. So we do some stuff with Wreaths Across America. It's really, though, you can see kind of the tapestry of what a good employee resource group or business resource group does is allows veterans and military families and non-military affiliated employees to have opportunities for that kind of meaningful interaction, whatever they, comes up to be that local flair, and then to translate that so that they are more willing to refer, a friend to come work at your company, which is like the highest kind of level of trust or, support of a company if you're recommending a friend or family member to work there. And so a lot of our emphasis is really around that recruiting, retention, or that professional mobility, or starting or scaling a business. So we do a lot with like the bunker, also in conjunction with JPMC and IBMF up at Syracuse University around helping veterans start and grow their businesses, and the impact that we get from that meaning that is that a veteran that's successful will turn around and then help another veteran, or a military spouse who has a P&L is definitely going to turn around and hire another military spouse. Be more willing to let them work remotely or help them find another job if it doesn't fit. And so I think that's the best, most distilled purpose of our ERGs. It's creating more veterans and military affiliated employees in more spaces doing more things.
I love Wreaths Across America. It's a good one. It's really popular down here. What advice can you give, and I'll open this question to anybody on the panel, what advice can you give for a nonprofit that is looking to engage with your company or your company's foundation? Go ahead, Dino.
Have a clear purpose and mission. Have a set of asks that, oftentimes you get what you ask for, but when you get it, you got to show a return, an improvement, and hopefully that matches up against your mission and moving it forward, and the associated goals and objectives. So just have clear asks and network with the who's who of the foundation or whomever. Get them to get to know you a little bit better. Establish a good working relationship, and I think that lends itself to partnership over time.
So the advice I would give is build a champion within the company. So the fact of the matter is all our companies and our foundations are being asked all the time from not only veteran space, but every space. And our companies are all global. So globally, and there's only so much money to go around. So build a champion within the company, and then focus first on volunteerism. So don't focus on that big check right away, because the chances of you getting a big check right away are pretty much non-existent. But most of our companies have volunteer systems where you go on and log the hours in the system. The UPS Foundation actually requires 50 employee volunteer hours logged in the system before they even consider a grant. But even with that, you got to make sure somebody is championing your cause. You can't just go on the UPS Foundation's website and fill out a form and have somebody call you back. And it doesn't work like that. So build a champion, focus on volunteerism.
Yeah, one thing I think is unique with the Home Depot is that if you're a nonprofit and you're looking to do like a project in the community, go to one of our stores, ask for the community captain. So we have something called Team Depot. Every single store has this, and you can talk to them about a community project. And then of course we also have the online. There's community impact grants, and then there's also veteran housing grants. So and it's on our we call it the newsroom. It's the Built from Scratch website, but you'll see the process there on how to apply.
So I would say data, you kind of hit on alignment with our pillars, because we do get a lot of requests, and not just for our military, but for all of the ERGs and to our philanthropy. And the ones that tend to rise up have a few characteristics, like they either align with our pillars that we're very kind of strategically focused on. There's always that internal champion that can come out of nowhere, and that's always a huge help. that you're sustainable past, like if we don't participate, it wouldn't cause you to fold, or for the event not to happen. Because we're still, as a company, very kind of timid, and we're still trying to determine in a lot of the cities that we operate in who are the best partners to best leverage to help grow our employee population and create meaningful opportunities for engagement. And so just the alignment, the data, sustainability, and that internal champion who, because each site, there's site community efforts that are always afoot. And if you can get people to, even when internally an employee comes and requests to give money to a certain nonprofit, we say, well, are you working within your ERG? Are they already volunteering there? Is there anyone else who's super passionate about this with you? Could they come and kind of like speak at one of your ERG meetings? Maybe get more people involved. Are there opportunities to volunteer? But those lower hanging fruit first is definitely the way. That's our orientation.
Yeah, great. Hey, let's flip that around a little bit. A lot of our employees and the VVRGs and UPS employees in general want to give back to veterans. And what advice can you offer somebody who wants to give either time or money to a nonprofit organization?
Well, I would say call Lloyd.
Wow.
Vetlanta has done some great work in kind of out of vetting, I guess, VSOs. I mean, we all know there's over 40,000 VSOs that exist, and trying to determine which ones are the ones that you should support or donate to or volunteer with is very difficult. So that's the answer, Lloyd. You put your cell number up.
We use Bethany, and so the benefit of Bethany is that it works for the corporate side and also for the nonprofit side. So if you were part of FirstData, I'd say as an employee, go to Bethany and look at the opportunities, because even if it's something that you really want to do, if it's not happening in your area, then that doesn't really help you geographically. But if or if you just want to write a check or do a destination something, that's different. But I think Bethany is also open to civilians in a way to go in and look and see where there's opportunities to volunteer by geography, and which really helps to kind of narrow it down, because that's the thing that I learned very early was that to give back to, if you want to give back to veterans or to women or to any group, usually they want to do it in person or have that meaningful. It's more than writing a check. So that's when geography becomes very important. And it's great if there's a group doing this thing over here, but if we only have sites in these cities, then we need to find another organization or figure out some way to cross that gap.
I'm going to do a poll here. How many people in this room, by show of hands, have had pancakes with me? So they have pancakes. Well, it's probably about 20, 25. So that's what we do at Vetlanta. We have pancakes. So we invite nonprofits to sit down for breakfast with us on a weekday in Alpharetta at 6:30 in the morning. So that's about 50% of the nonprofits right there. So you're got to be motivated to drive up Alpharetta and have breakfast at 6:30. Because most of the Vetlanta board and other directors, we have day jobs. We do this as volunteers and action. So we have to find time, and we do it in the morning. And then if you have breakfast with us, you've probably been grilled by us. And we have actually a 5-page vetting checklist. And so we look at who you're helping, how you're helping. We look at public sources. We ask people that you've said you helped. And we figured out who's providing the most value in our community. Vetlanta is focused on the greater Atlanta community. So there's 40,000 out there. There's a lot of them that aren't any good. So that are either spending too much money on fundraising and not enough time and effort on deliverables. And then there's just the pure fraud scammers and schemers. And something I'm really proud with the Vetlanta is we have those internal discussions. So we have those rough conversations. So when you make it to a table at one of our Vetlanta summits, that our members know, hey, you've been vetted, you're providing true value for the veterans and their families out there. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you probably see more posts on nonprofits, the good, the bad, ugly. Do your homework. Do your homework before you give a second of your time or you give a penny of your money. Make sure they're having valuable impact. So let's talk about some of the, does anybody want to talk about any of their initiatives that you've been involved with over the years that were really focused on volunteerism versus monetary support?
At the bank, we have something we do. It's in a lot of cities, but most of the tri-state area, and it's actually not even a veteran-based initiative, but it's to mentor, urban inner city youth that usually don't have maybe the opportunity to go to school or look at out-of-state colleges. But a lot of our veterans are involved. From our managing directors down to it's actually a big project of the BRG. And that's one of those things I think where when you're looking at becoming involved with any group, look where other parts of the firm where you can become, active. So it might not just be with veterans, it might be with women and veterans, it might be with disability and veterans. I know we're starting to do a lot of work with our disability inclusion group. We just did an event recently with our Women on the Move Business Resource Group. And this is something they sort of found in and found a home where it didn't start out as a veteran thing, but it became a big thing for the firm from an engagement standpoint, where a lot of our military members found value and where they could come in right away. And they really just need the people. They need people to come in and meet at zero to no cost with these individuals. So I think that was a very good example of something that that became part of our culture within at least the tri-state office through just the ability to volunteer without the money asked.
Something that we do is we partner with Toys for Tots, and this is actually our associate resource group, our military appreciation group. We lead this for the company. So, and really Atlanta-based, so just the corporate office. But there's 25 different dates that we go from October through December. And last year we had 2,000 associates participate. It's like 12,000 volunteer hours. And 400,000 kids got gifts in the 18 counties surrounding Atlanta last year. So very impactful. And that doesn't, it's associates' time, certainly, but we even had some of our supply chain folks go in the beginning and kind of adjust the way they were sorting toys. That logistics mind is like, just like UPS. So time involved, certainly, but no monetary.
And some of our best relationships with nonprofits that have definitely ended up with funding definitely started with volunteering, with either having our employees go in and provide, information on cybersecurity or how to start your business, or how to look at regulations and how that affects your ability to move your business. Reads Across America is a really good one. The United Veterans War Council, so I guess almost like a Vetlanta, but for New York. We've done volunteer activities with them, and then developed into financial support. We're very excited with the Bethany platform because I think that will kind of expand the aperture for our employees to be able to volunteer, and then potentially for us to match, dollars for doers. So we haven't seen that, yet because we don't have it. But I've seen from other companies who do use it, looking at USAA, that Benevity has really opened up that ability to mobilize your workforce for good, early on, and use volunteerism as kind of an active way to engage your employees. And then if you see a bunch of them are volunteering there, then you're more willing to listen to the person who says, hey, can we fund them?
Yeah, I think that's a great example. The partnership that I would point to is Carry the Load, which started for us a couple of years ago, I want to say 2015, which has just blossomed into us providing some financial assistance to that organization. But for a company as large as AT&T, Carry the Load helped us mobilize the non-veterans employees across the nation in retail stores and office buildings, because they were looking out their windows and what is going on down there? I know it's Memorial Day, I know it stands for something, but what's going on? And so that just motivated a lot of other employees to join in the march the following year. And Carry the Load has other opportunities to volunteer throughout the year as well. So that's been just another great partnership for us.
Great. So one of the ones I'm most proud of is a company that's actually headquartered here in Georgia, in Alpharetta, matter of fact, Hire Heroes USA. So they met Brian Stan probably 4 or 5 years ago, the former CEO, and found out what great work they were doing. And they started doing mock interviews. And I can tell you, a mock interview for a veteran that has never been through a job interview, like myself. I joined the Air Force when I was 17, retired when I was 38, had never been through a job interview. So it's amazing to help people with their resume and with their interview and see them become extremely competitive in the market after just a couple of discussions. So something I'm very, very proud of and do a lot of volunteering with. I want to talk about success stories with each of you. It would just like for each of you to tell me something you've seen successful. And I'll start to give you an example. When we really started opening up the doors about 3.5 years ago to Vetlanta, we originally focused on Fortune 500 companies. And it really made a good decision to open it up to anybody who wanted to help veterans. And the first flood we got was with nonprofits. And it was really my first taste of being asked for big money and without a relationship. And a lot of those organizations didn't really figure it out at the time. And we had one that did, and it was Soldiers Angels. So the Soldiers Angels in Atlanta they do absolutely amazing work. And they used to be ran by Diane Moore, and no longer, but Diane and her husband Steve showed up, and they weren't your really typical couple running a nonprofit. So they kind of looked out of place, and you wonder, it's like, wow, who are they? But they got it. So they took the stage for the first time when we used to give everybody stage time and didn't ask for money right away. So they wanted to focus on volunteers and never ask for money. And then they started driving volunteer efforts through UPS and Coca-Cola and a bunch of other companies. And guess what followed the volunteer hours? Money. So I remember the first time they asked us for money. I don't give grants. So with Vetlanta, I do a couple things. I remain apolitical, and I stay out of the UPS foundations there because I'm connected with so many organizations. But they asked our VBRG for $800. They had an event, and we overwhelmingly said yes because we had hundreds of hours logged in the system. But we couldn't do a check as low as $800. And so what we ended up doing was they did an event for Coca-Cola, $5,000, an event for different companies, $5,000 here, and they ended up having a big impact. And very, very proud that Vetlanta was able to make that happen. And the UPS and the VBRG also saw that value. Anybody got a great success story?
I hear success stories every day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, success for me is if a veteran comes up to me or anyone in my organization. We have 10,000 employees that are part of our ERG, and if you have a veteran that comes up to anyone and says, thanks for what you're doing to help us get ahead, that's success for me. Our partners help us do that. And I'm proud of how we approach those partnerships and help those other nonprofits flourish as well with our man and woman power. So that's a collective success story.
Yeah, because of our partnerships at the local level to feed our pipeline for military-related candidates, we track applicant to interview, interview to hire. routinely been over 50%, and it's about 65% for this year to date, which means that if we get the veteran or military affiliated candidate to the hiring manager for interview, they're more likely to be hired than not. Which means that, you know, we're just opening the door that they're walking through with the talent and the skill set and the, you know, person culture fit. And so that to me is a success story, because it means that, you know, our job is the easiest, is just to get more candidates through the door. They're getting themselves hired. And, you know, so those are, you know, we see those success stories too, and you see them maybe not as often as you would like to all the time, but when you do have those ones that spark and hit, and you see the success that comes after that, it's a good thing.
I think for me, a good example would be with our associate resource group, the veteran integration program that I mentioned. It's relatively new, and I've been talking about it with our board, and probably about 2 years of the 3 years that I've been the chair. And what it took was a transitioning Army captain who was hired into supply chain to come in, and we met for coffee, and he was telling me, the struggles that he was having, and all that. He had only been at Home Depot for maybe 2 or 3 months, and it clicked, and I said, oh goodness, I would love for you to come to a board meeting. I told him about our military appreciation group and all this stuff, and he's like, oh, this is great, and kind of the volunteer opportunities, and he is heading up that, he is leading that effort. And I guess I forget, he's young, so he's got all this energy and drive, and it took maybe a month. He had the whole thing lined out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. But what a success story. And I found out about one of his neighbors who he had newly transitioned, and we hadn't met yet, so he recruited him, and he's now our events chair. And again, just getting that new blood in the group and getting things going. So that was good for us.
Yeah, for us, I think from like a corporate standpoint, something that we found a lot of value in was like with IBM up at Syracuse, with our onward opportunity program, which obviously sources a lot of talent on each military installation. So they already have those local connections. From a business standpoint, it's great because our recruiters and hiring managers love it, because they're getting, the fruits of their labor of like bringing people to these different offices. And then from their VCTP program, which offers the free training program to veterans and their spouses, our employees see a lot of engagement there, because they can go on and they know that the bank, really does, back them and wants to provide this resource not just for JPMC employees, but for the whole veteran community as a whole. So that's something that we've seen a lot of value in. And I think internally, sort of talking about the engagement piece, we started a peer mentorship program where veterans get paired, experienced veterans in the firm get paired with a new veteran who's just hired. But we just started out this past year, and we already have a lot of our non-veteran counterparts who want to mentor new veterans. So we've seen increased engagement from that as well, and that's just like from relationships and building off that.
Great. I have one story to share on success, and something that we get lost, me and corporate a lot of times, is measuring success with a spreadsheet, right? And so we got to challenge ourselves, and we do have in Atlanta to never forget the individual stories where you have impact. And I have a great story, and I'll close it out with this story. It's based on last year's AWP, the symposium, the Warrior Community Integration Symposium. Vetlanta did an event last year. It was broken out into two events, and I led a panel discussion on transitioning veterans and spouses to help them out. And we had an okay turnout, and wasn't really sure how many folks in the room could use the advice. Honestly, there was a lot of very successful people in the room. And near the very end, we had a guy in the back of the crowd ask a question. And it's always interesting asking, taking questions in a format like this, because a lot of times you get bogus questions, right? Somebody want to advertise a business, make a point, throw the VA under the bus. So you got to really have strong moderator skills to handle that. And we had this guy stand up and he told about an interview he had earlier in the day. And he said he went through a job interview and he thought he connected with the hiring manager, and he spent an hour giving his case, and then the last question I asked him is, why should we hire you? And for some reason, the guy got a bad attitude with that question, and he kind of lost it. And he goes, I spent the last hour, how rude of you, and don't really know what he was thinking, but needless to say, he was not going to get a call back. And so he went through that whole dialogue, and we happened to have on the panel was a vice president from UPS HR, had never been a veteran, Stefan, born and raised in East St. Louis, just as tough as this guy. And he pulled him to the front of the room. And the guy didn't want to come to the front of the room. He pulled him and made him sit in front of the stage. And he told him about when he was asked that question 30 years ago, and how he handled it, and what this guy needed to go do to make it right. And he followed that advice to the T. And we ended up getting a call later. It turns out this guy was a homeless veteran. He was employed, but he was only making about $21,000 a year. And he ended up getting the job as a nighttime hotel auditor, making close to $60,000 a year. So it's you can have an impact. So great. Let me just check the app to see if we had any questions. So no questions. There was an app. So there was an app. You guys didn't read all those emails or on the site. So I think we have time. I think we can do a couple questions. Holly Best.
Okay, so I know volunteerism was a big point on everybody's discussion, and it is super important. So I know a lot of the corporate companies in Atlanta and everywhere else are offering volunteer hours off for employees to go do different things in their communities. Can you talk a little bit about what each of your organizations are doing to allow people the time off, and do you have specific organizations that you allow them to volunteer for during that time, or how you're appropriating that?
Time off? What's that? Great question.
Well, we're an always-on company. I mean, we sell mobility, and we're connected 24/7. So in terms of community engagement and involvement, there is no restriction on when. For union employees, there needs to be a sign-off with their immediate supervisor or manager, and that time is just coded differently than a management employee. And I say, secondly or thirdly, our ATT Foundation kicks in money if you choose to donate as an employee to the list that we have on our website, either dollar for dollar or at some percentage to get you out there.
So I'm making a middle note because I love when people ask this question, because we don't currently have a volunteer time off program. That's in the works for the 5-year plan, but every time someone asks me that, I get to say, someone asked me that. We are launching our matching charitable donations in 2019, and so part of that will be a Dollars for Doers. So it's a way to kind of dip our toe in the water. But I love that you're asking that, and I want to learn from all the companies that already do it to best integrate it into our culture, because we know that engaged employees are more productive and make for happier clients and all of the great business case. But really, it's a good thing to do because engaged people keep coming to work.
I think it's complicated.
Yeah, complicated.
It is, and we do the company match, certainly, but it depends. So if you're working in a store and you want to volunteer, so I talked about the Team Depot events, that's associates volunteering on their time off. So and if it's something that's during the day and it's a shift that they're working, then they would just need to work with their manager to get that time off. Certainly in Atlanta at the corporate office, it's a little bit different, or even just if you're salaried, it's a little different because you can go home and make up the time on your laptop. So I hope that's an okay answer.
I've got a couple other questions now that people figured out there was an app. So the first one is a question. I mentioned earlier about vetting nonprofits, and that it displeases me when a nonprofit spends more time fundraising versus deliverables. So the question is, how much is too much? So I'll answer it, then I'll see if anybody else has any thoughts on that. To me, I go to Charity Navigator, and I look at how much money the company has, or the nonprofit has raised that year. So how much money they've spent that year, and how much they have on hand. And sometimes it's obscene. We all can think of some of the organizations that are like that. So I sit down with nonprofits and I ask them that question: how much money have you spent, and how much time and effort have you spent on delivering? And oftentimes the big fundraisers will have good answers, but it can be a very personal decision if you're looking at giving volunteer time or giving money out of your own pocket to the organization.
I would say the 990s are, you just go and you can look them up online, and that gives you a lot of information on how much is coming in, how much is going out, who it's going to, and what it's going for, and when it went. And that really helps to just kind of round out the decision.
You can even look at how much they're paying their board, so Charity Navigator, the compensation on that, and it's interesting. So the other question I had is from Betty writes, and Betty writes, you're right about volunteerism being important. However, the nonprofit's model doesn't lend itself to a large amount of volunteerism. How do you navigate the funding of a corporate landscape? It's a great question, by the way. I've faced that often. Any thoughts on that? I do have an answer.
Well, I think we touched on it a bit about, and I think Dino said about building the relationship. And if it's at the corporate office, the relationship that way, or if it's a relationship like I mentioned, going into the store and finding that community captain. Absolutely, the dollars, that is important. And it may not come as quickly as you may want, but kind of building the relationship, building a case, having, what you're going to do with the money, the plan, all of that in place, I think is very important. And then just knowing where to go to do it. So I mentioned that website, so just knowing how to navigate through that. And if you can, finding that champion at the company to help you through that.
And we're out of time, so they seem they're trying to give me the signals. So one thing, there was a couple people, Glenn Gray connected with me on LinkedIn. I'll tell you how we communicate with their 2,000 members. It's a big challenge. If anybody has any questions, feel free to contact any of us on LinkedIn. Big round of applause for the panel. We'll be around for a little bit of time, and several of us will be at tomorrow's evening session. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing you early tomorrow morning. Have a great night.